Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose Alcaton, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. I have personally been suffering with PMDD for over 19 years, and I published my dissertation directly towards the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who are suffering with PMDD. So although I have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is an approximately 1 in 20 women, makes you want to break up with your partner every single month right before your period, I also provide services and counseling services and programs specifically designed for partners for what they are going through with being in a relationship with someone who struggles with PMDD. There are so many aspects that affect PMDD relationships, whether it's PMDD rage, whether it's intrusive thoughts, whether it's just you not getting your needs met in your PMDD relationship and feeling like breaking up is your only option. I am here every single week to give you my signature trauma transformational tools that are going to help you and your PMDD partner to get through all of the stress that is going on in your PMDD relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with, then you need to join the PMDD Power Couples Group Counseling Membership. This is when we meet every single week. We go over what is specifically going on in your PMDD relationship, and you'll get a chance to get my customized PMDD counseling transformational tools. And then also, if you need a private session for you and your partner, you can go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those PMDD relationship reset sessions. This is where I have private sessions with you every single week, every single month. We're checking in, we're mapping out your PMDD relationship. So let's get into today's episode. Today, I want to talk to you about part 2 of how PMDD can cause you to lose your identity. This podcast episode is going to be all about the partner that is suffering with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. If you haven't listened to last episode, go back and listen to that. That one has all to do with the actual partner and how being in a relationship with someone who has premenstrual dysphoric disorder can cause you to lose your identity. I've gotten so much feedback on that episode already, and what I want to let you know is the reason why I'm shedding the light on this is because I don't want you to think that you are alone. I do not want you to think that there's something wrong with you. I do not want you to think that there's something wrong with your relationship. I don't want you to feel like you should break up because, it's your relationship is just the worst, right? So many times when I'm working with you privately, I always get the question of, you're telling me the scenarios that are going on in your PMDD relationship, and you're basically asking me, how bad is it? Have you ever heard of any other couple going through what we're going through and still making it, still being able to survive within the relationship or even be happy or get their needs met in the relationship? And the answer is yes. And I've heard so many things, and I've been through so many things being in a relationship while having premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And one of the things that I really want you to know is when you start to do the work and utilize the tools that I give you on here, my PMDD trauma transformational tools, one of the biggest things is becoming self-aware of when you are in PMDD, when you are in your luteal phase, and you are acting differently towards your partner strategically because you are in your luteal phase. Not that you just automatically have an issue with your partner and you are acting differently because of that. It's more so that the luteal phase, the symptoms that you're having, the cognitive symptoms that you're having, such as intrusive thoughts, such as anxiety, such as depression, such as overthinking, the ruminating thoughts. When you start having those things happen within your brain, this is when you're going to start acting differently in your PMDD relationship. And I know for me, it took a while for me to come to terms with, it's not just that I have issues with my partner at the time. It's not just that we're not seeing eye to eye. It's not just that my feelings are hurt because of something happened. I am interpreting the things that are happening in the relationship differently in my luteal phase, because there were so many times where when I was in my follicular phase and everything was going good, my partner could act the same way and it wouldn't trigger me. It was because I was in my luteal phase. It was because I was already suffering that my interpretation of all of my partner's actions were different. And so when you start to utilize the tools that I give you, it's self-awareness. It's becoming self-aware. And I really had to pull back before I responded. And I literally had to say, it's me. It's me. Like I always say, the Taylor Swift song, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. And this was not in a way of shaming myself or blaming myself or feeling like I'm a horrible person. But the first way that PMDD can really cause you to feel like your identity has been stolen, like you're a completely different person, is you start apologizing for who you have become in your luteal phase. You know, one of the things about my personality is I'm very happy normally. You know, I'm very upbeat. I'm very loving. I'm very generous. I'm very just, you know, one of the mottos that I have in my follicular phase that I try to keep reminding myself of is the motto that I have for my life. And that's good vibes only. What that means is good energy only. I only want to give out good energy and I would desire to only receive good energy. Now, obviously having premenstrual dysphoric disorder, I don't always feel good, right? So the perception or the goal is not to always feel good. I say good vibes only to remind myself of who I am at my core. I know that if I'm not feeling good, but I'm consistently doing things that, you know, lift my vibration, if I'm listening to music that I love, if I'm going to raves and I'm dancing, if I'm out with friends, if I'm entertaining friends coming over, if I'm with a partner that I'm dating and I'm just in that place of really feeling good about myself, having the good vibes only, that just reminds me of who I really am. PMDD will really start to lie to you and make you feel like you're a different version of yourself. And so you apologize for acting the opposite of who you really are. So I want you to just take some time right now and think about a motto that you can have for your life that describes your identity. I have a client and they're just like, go with the flow. They pride themselves on being laid back, but they know that when they get into their luteal phase, when they're suffering with PMDD, they do the opposite of going with the flow. They're very hypervigilant. They're very much on high alert. They do a lot of nagging. They do a lot of overthinking. And when you start to look at that version of yourself, it's not attractive. It's not a version of yourself that you actually want to be. You know, for me, it was having this anxiety. And when I would go off on PMDD rage, whenever I would yell, I don't even curse, but like I noticed during my luteal phase, I don't even curse for fun. Like it's just not something that I do. And I think it's because I've, you know, raised my daughter in the home and we just don't use curse words. And I'm not saying anything like shaming anyone that does it. It was just something that we don't do. And so I even noticed that I started cursing in my luteal phase in anger, obviously. And when I look back at that version of myself, I was so ashamed and I started to really apologize because I would look back on things that I said, look back on actions that I did. And it was such the opposite of who I am. And I was, you know, like I lashed out on PMDD rage and I felt ashamed about how I spoke to my partner. I felt ashamed of even allowing myself to get to that point of going that low. Like that was like, if I'm thinking of like the core of who I am is good vibes only, there was like bad vibes within my luteal phase. I would consistently start to feel negative. And I always say the feeling itself isn't the problem. Feeling differently in your luteal phase is not the problem. It's what you do with that feeling. It's how you act as a result of having that feeling. That's the part that I was really ashamed about. So I would always say, like, I'm so sorry again. And I think when you start to apologize to your partner every single month, your partner can get a little bit desensitized to it. I know mine did. It was kind of like the apology didn't mean as much because they knew that you were probably going to do the same thing the very next month. So it didn't hit home. It didn't make them feel seen and heard and validated because it's like, yeah, you're apologizing, but you're probably going to do this again next month. And then part of you is probably like, fearing that you're probably agreeing with your partner. I probably am going to go off next month in PMDD rage. And then you start saying things like, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just see a situation for what it is? Why do I have to overreact? And this is things that you may be saying to yourself, because even if you're not admitting it to your partner that you're feeling differently in PMDD, like maybe you're not there in your journey yet, like where you can actually just come out and say, I feel differently when I am in my luteal phase. A lot of times when you're first finding out that you have PMDD, or you're really thinking that you always have other things going on in your relationship. So it's not just PMDD. You get to a point where you're denying the fact that you actually are different in your luteal phase. I know I've been there. I was denying it and really saying that, no, I'm not acting this way just because of PMDD. I really have an issue with you. We really do have an issue with this. And these are things that we really need to work on. And you don't want to feel like you're the only one. You don't want to feel like your partner's fine and you're the one that's messed up. You're the one that's causing issues in the relationship. You want to feel like it's kind of like a joint effort. Like it feels better to be in a relationship and feel like we need to work on things. Like we both have something to work on. It doesn't feel balanced for one person to be the problem. And then the other partner is just steadily being there trying to fix you. Right. But when you're in your luteal phase, you do lose sense of who you are when apologies start to feel like it's your personality. Like, this is just what I do. I end up apologizing, overly apologizing. Or maybe you've gotten to the point where you stop apologizing. You're in that defensive mode where you're starting to defend all of your actions. And you're kind of defending your actions because it feels better than just admitting that you talk to your partner like a piece of crap, that you disrespected them. You kind of want to get to a point where you can justify going off on your partner on PMDD rage, or you can justify shutting down, or you can justify being triggered because you're kind of like, you know what? It's because I'm in my luteal phase, but then also look at what he did or look at what she did. Another way that PMDD really impacts your identity and who you are is you begin to not trust your own feelings and emotions. You don't trust them because in your follicular days, you're in love and you're, in this place where you're planning your future together. You're planning vacations together. You're feeling so connected. You're feeling so grateful for your partner. And then the next thing you know, you're in your luteal phase and you're planning to leave them and you're kind of feeling claustrophobic, like I need to get out of here. And so it's this emotional whiplash. Like one minute you're in love, the next minute you're packing your bags and you're planning on leaving. And it's all because your luteal phase has really impacted your brain. This is why the bulk of my tools help you rewire your PMDD brain because you're so convincing. When you're in that place of wanting to stay, you're convinced that you should stay. When you're in that place of wanting to leave, you're convinced that you should leave. And you're in this place of feeling like you need to do something about it. So you're rushing and rushing and rushing and really feeling like the core of who you are is lost. Like, I don't know if I really love my partner. I don't know if I really like my partner. I don't even know if we're really compatible. I remember being in that place of being really confused and really asking myself, do I really feel this way? Or is this just the PMDD talking? Is this just my PMDD brain talking? I would have this conversation every single month because it felt real in the moment. But when you start to look at the pattern, you're like, wait a minute, I felt like this before. I felt like leaving before. I felt like, you can have it both ways where one minute where you're saying that you're so in love in your follicular days, you'll start to not trust that emotion. You'll say, am I just saying that I really want to be with my partner and I really want to be in this relationship and I'm so in love because I'm so blinded by all of the triggers and I'm just taking it? Like you might feel a little bit weak. Like, I guess I'm not standing up for myself and I'm just brushing over things that I really should be standing up to my partner about. I've had so many people DM me and say, I feel like when I'm in PMDD, that's the real me. That's me who's been putting up with all of these things and I'm tired of it. And I'm finally putting my foot down and saying, this is what I don't like. And this is the real me talking. It's just that I'm not able to hold it in any longer. So then they don't know if the core of who they are is the version of themselves in PMDD who's going off on their partner, who's calling their partner out, who's triggered by their partner's actions, or is the core of who you are when you're in your follicular days and you're just kind of brushing everything over and you're being really agreeable and you're being really loving and you're feeling really grateful to even have your partner. Right? Because I know for me, there were so many times where I would actually look at my partner with such gratitude in my follicular phase. And I would see all of these amazing characteristics about him and like, oh my gosh, he's so generous. He's so loving. He's so this, he's so that. Like I could list out all of these things. I would feel so lucky to be with this person. And then I would go into my luteal phase and feel like completely annoyed and triggered and feeling like they were a burden and feeling like they were something that I had to put up with. And I just really, couldn't stand certain mannerisms that they would do. So much to the point where I think I started thanking my partner, like outwardly showing gratitude. And I remember one time my partner at the time was like, I'm not doing anything differently. Like it was almost like he took the compliments that I was giving him as an insult. Like I've literally been doing this all month long. You're just finally in a place where you can see my efforts and what I'm doing. And it's kind of like, your partner can get a little bit resentful because say if they're doing all of these amazing things for you, but you're never showing gratitude. And then you go into the follicular phase and you're like, thanks so much, babe, for doing this, or thank you, babe, for doing that. And they've been doing it the whole time. But it's just the fact that you weren't able to see it because you were in your luteal phase, which is clouded by negativity. Whenever you're in your luteal phase, you're hyper vigilant, you're hyper focused on the negative parts of your partner, and the positive qualities are just they're there because they're doing them. You don't feel appreciation for them. And so you start to just question your own emotions. And it's hard to know who you really are and how you really feel about your partner when you feel like every single month in your luteal phase, your emotions get hijacked. It's like someone else takes over the controls of your brain and your emotions and your feelings and what offends you and what triggers you. And they kind of mess with the motherboard. So you're like, does this thing really trigger me? Like one of my biggest things was snoring, right? And I would be like, oh my gosh, my partner's maliciously snoring. And all of a sudden I would go into my follicular phase and I would be sleeping like a baby. And it's kind of like, I didn't trust. I'm like, is snoring really a trigger, or is this something that PMDD is just using to cause me to suffer? Because my partner snored every single day. And, I was like, I don't know if I can trust that this is really something that triggers me if it only happens during my luteal phase. Why am I able to sleep soundly in my follicular phase? So what happens is over time, your relationship will start to feel like a war zone. I remember waking up so often, looking at my phone and just trying to, see what damage had been done the day before. I was so confused on a day-to-day basis. I was like, are we fighting? Are we not fighting? Are we talking? Are we not talking? And it was this up and down and this push and pull, because every single month it was like this cycle of defensiveness and conflict and fights and arguments and not seeing eye to eye, and one person withdrawing and shutting down, and then the other person saying we should just break up, because you start to think, to yourself, like, I'm tired of hurting the person that I love. I don't even know if I deserve them anymore. And this is when you start to self-sabotage the relationship and tell your partner, like, maybe you should break up with me. Like, you either tell your partner that they should break up with you, or you put them in a position where you want them to leave you just to put yourself out of your misery. Like, you're miserable knowing that it's going to consistently be like this every single month, day to day. Every single month is going to be like this in the luteal phase, that you lose your identity as being a loving partner, as someone that actually wants to be in a relationship. And you begin to be like, I'm the problem. I'm the source of pain. Maybe I should just be single. Maybe if I just isolate myself, then it will be so much better. And when you start to get into that point of isolation, I will say that it is one of the most painful things that you can do, because when you lose your identity to PMDD and you isolate, you feel like you're protecting your partner. You feel like you're protecting the people that you love, but you're pulling away from doing the things that are a source of support for you. Like, you don't have a loving partner that's there, because you start to shut down because you don't trust yourself around your partner. You don't trust yourself to go through your symptoms without causing damage. And you literally say to yourself, I feel like I would be safer alone. I feel like no one deserves to be around this. So you want to hibernate. And if your partner is like mine have been in the past, where hibernation is a trigger for them, when you go to shut down, it's a trigger because you're shutting off your emotional connection with that person. And so it might feel safer to you, but it costs you connection in your PMDD relationship. It causes your partner feeling connected to you. It makes them start to feel like there's something wrong with them. It makes them feel like you don't want to be with them. It makes them feel like you don't want to be in the relationship. When in all honesty, you're just saying, basically, I am distancing myself from you because I don't trust myself around you. And they don't understand that. Partners are not going to understand that, because they would almost rather be with you in that place of you suffering than for you to not be connected to them at all. You are trying to protect your partner, and your partner is just trying to connect with you. So what you may start doing is something that I used to do. I burnt myself out performing, doing acts of service rather than connecting, overcompensated for, like, I overcompensated during my luteal phase by doing a lot of things for my partner when my partner just really wanted me to connect with them. So when I got into my follicular days, I would be extra cheerful, extra happy. I would be planning trips, planning vacations, because I knew this was my good week. So I almost felt like I needed to make up for how I was in my luteal phase. And so my partner would obviously enjoy that part, but I think it's so much harder when you're being overly nice, overly loving, overly grateful, overly cheerful right before you go into PMDD, because you get your partner on this really big high and they're feeling so connected and so loved. And they're like so hopeful, like, wow, maybe we can really make it. Like, this feels really good to me. And then all of a sudden you wake up in your luteal phase and you're like, pretty much like, get away from me, or I need space, I need time away, or I need this. And so you're going from this place of having this deep connection because you're being your most loving self to feeling completely disconnected. It's almost like somebody pulled the plug and there's no more power in your love and your affection and your attention and your validation towards your partner. And you might feel this sense of guilt and this sense of like, I need to be extra good on my good days. And because you're saying to yourself, if I don't prove that I'm worthy of love, of being in this relationship when I'm in my good days, then they're going to leave me when I'm not this way. Like, you're almost feeling the pressure of being happy and being loving and all of these things. I remember faking it. I remember genuinely faking being loving in my luteal phase to try to pretend like I wasn't suffering, just to, see if that would help my relationship. I was so tired of being chastised and blamed for not being overly loving and being kind of like disconnected that I tried to fake it. You know, that phrase, fake it until you make it. The problem is, and it was working for my partner because he was so happy that I was acting happy. But what it did for me internally is I started to get bitter and resentful and felt like, wow, I can't even be myself. Like, in order for me to be in this relationship, it's almost like I have to be fake. I have to pretend like I'm this version of myself. But really, was I pretending? All I was doing was acting the way I would normally act in my follicular phase. But for me, it was such a struggle because I didn't genuinely feel loving. I genuinely felt like I had an avoidant attachment style, like I wanted to avoid my partner at all costs, but I didn't want to be the one to say that because it sounded horrible. So I was in this place of burning myself out and then feeling bitter and resentful because I couldn't be myself. I couldn't just let my guard down and be, super internal or be super avoidant without it being, without being told that I was the problem. And so what happens is I abandon my needs to keep the peace. What I needed was space and time to deal with my premenstrual dysphoric disorder symptoms on my own. And I abandoned my need for that by pushing myself in situations that I really didn't want to be in for the sake of meeting my partner's needs. So I didn't even talk about my luteal phase and how I was suffering or any of my symptoms. I avoided sharing my pain or my needs because I didn't want to burden my partner. I didn't want to trigger my partner because I knew as soon as I started talking about my PMDD symptoms that my partner was going to get triggered by that and feel like I was going to lash out or feel scared or feel fearful or feel like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next. It's almost like waiting for the ball to drop, waiting for something bad to happen. But then I literally got bitter and resentful again. And because you start to think to yourself, I don't get to have bad days. My whole life is a bad day. And so I really identified as a person that, was just feeling guilty consistently for suffering with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And so the next thing that will happen is you just start to feel like a burden. You don't feel like a partner in the relationship. You feel like a burden. Once your partner starts walking on eggshells, you notice that they're walking on eggshells and they're like treading lightly every single month. Like, that doesn't feel good to you, to know that you're causing your partner to be this lesser version of themselves. Like, that their personality is being different around you because they're fearing a reaction from you. So they're kind of like tiptoeing around you, walking on eggshells. And then it doesn't feel good because you'll start to say, they deserve better than this. Maybe I should just be alone. This is when you go back into that realm of isolation. It's like you can see your partner acting differently, and you also can't do anything to stop it because you can't pull yourself out of the mood that you're in, right? So you begin to see yourself as the problem to be managed instead of the partner to be loved. Instead of you feeling deserving of love because you're giving love just as much as you're needing it, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, they have to take care of me, or oh, they have to walk on eggshells around me, or oh, they can't be themselves. Like, I kind of ruined the vibe in the house, or every single month, like the energy in your home will begin to honestly feel different. The energy will start to feel different in your luteal phase when you're suffering with PMDD. Maybe even your children are like tiptoeing around you and everybody's just kind of isolating and doing their own thing when you're in your luteal phase. And then you get into your follicular phase, and then everybody's like happy and joyful and all of these things. And you just get to the point where you're literally like gaslighting yourself daily. You're minimizing your pain, or you're second guessing your reality. You don't know what's real or what's not. You're like, maybe I am just dramatic. I remember hearing some of the insults from my partners in the past, and then I start to believe it. Like, maybe this isn't real. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am, this unlovable person. Maybe I shouldn't be in a relationship. You start to question your truth. You start to question your worth. You start to believe like, maybe I do deserve, like if your partner says hurtful things, like you start to feel like maybe, they should talk to me like that because I was horrible to them. Right. You start to not have standards and not have boundaries because you get to the point where you start to feel like you deserve it because you look back, because you're being told about all of the things that you've said and done in your luteal phase. And you're like, I did say those things, or I did do those things. So maybe the way that my partner is treating me, maybe I deserve to be treated like that. So maybe you have a partner that, does verbal or physical abuse towards you throughout the relationship. And you don't feel like it's anything that you need to walk away from because you're like, look at everything that they put up with. Like, of course they're going to verbally abuse me. Of course they're going to physically abuse me every now and again because I push their buttons. Like, you start to make an excuse for the abuse because you're starting to feel like you deserve it. This is when your identity is in someone that deserves abuse. You start to tolerate it because you start to think, well, I verbally abused them. I verbally attacked them. I said mean things to them. And this is when the cycle of abuse really starts to be normalized within your relationship because you start to verbally abuse your partner by going off on PMDD rage. They then get defensive and they start going off while you're in your luteal phase. And so it's almost like you can't call them out on their behavior because number one, you feel like you caused it. And number two, you're feeling like it's a response to something that you said or did to them. So how much better are you, in the relationship in the realms of abuse if you're doing the same thing that you're telling them that they shouldn't be doing to you? So it really is this pull and push as to what do I deserve? Who am I really? What kind of person am I? What kind of partner am I? What kind of relationship do I deserve? And the next thing that happens is you get to the point where you feel like a stranger in your own life. And I know this, my ex used to call it going on autopilot, right? You're just you're waking up, you're trying to manage your symptoms. You watch yourself go through the emotions with work, with your relationship, with routines, with detachment. You're completely detached from your reality and you're just trying not to go off. You're just doing everything and there's no excitement in it. There's no real emotion. There's just this kind of detachment and this isolation where you're looking at yourself and you're like deflated. And you're saying to yourself, I miss who I used to be. I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't know who I want. I don't know what I want. And so you're in this constant cycle of emotional survival. You're just trying to survive PMDD and it replaces who you really are with someone that you don't even recognize. Like if someone was to take a camera and just even take a picture of you. I know for me, I used to look different in my luteal phase. Like you can definitely tell, like my smile looked different. My partner used to say my eyes look different every single time I was like in the luteal phase and I just didn't recognize myself. And even looking back, because, you have those Facebook memories or Snapchat memories, or even I think Instagram does it now too, where it kind of shows you this time last year, or this time 2 years ago, this was you. And sometimes when I was in my luteal phase, I just look unrecognizable. I was just so unhappy. I was so deflated. I was so numb. I was in such a realm of suffering. Like you could see it in my eyes. I always say, like, when you look at someone's eyes when they're in their luteal phase, when they haven't really used the tools and they haven't done the work, like right now, I can be in my luteal phase and look the same all month long, thank goodness. But I have to consciously like use my tools and work on it. It's not automatic. It is definitely not automatic. My PMDD partner's morning routine that I've always talked about, it really helps me to kind of reset my identity and stay in the version of me that makes me feel my best. And one of the things that really, is impacted when I'm in my luteal phase is not recognizing your own body, number one, with the bloating and the cravings and the insomnia where you're not getting sleep. And so you start to look exhausted and you're bloated and you're craving things and you're eating things that you wouldn't normally eat. And so you don't recognize your body anymore. Like there's been so many times where, because I do my PMDD partners morning routine and I do my workouts, and it's not a matter of, I can literally like gain weight even while I'm doing my PMDD partners morning routine, which is so hard for me because I'll start to second guess myself. Like I'll gaslight myself, like maybe I should be working out more, or maybe I should be doing this, without really recognizing that when I'm in my luteal phase, I'm going to be bloated certain times. Number one, because I'm eating stuff that I wouldn't normally eat. And then number two, sometimes you're just bloated. You can be bloated during ovulation as well. It's just that, but when you don't identify with your body, when your body starts to ache. I know for me, there was times where I would even get bruises. I had bruises on my body, literal bruises on my body. And I'm like, where did this come from? And then that's when I recognized it was a symptom of PMDD. I'm like, my goodness. It's like every single time I recognize that how much PMDD attacks the body and the mind, I'm just like, that's not fair. Like I just literally pride myself on being healthy and taking care of my body. And when I go into my luteal phase, it's like all of that really goes out the window because it's so hard to manage my cravings. And sometimes I just allow myself to give in. And I think I do it like a day. But this past month, my goodness, I completely gaslit myself when it came to my body, because this is why you have to really be careful about what you're listening to, specifically on social media, because your algorithm will start to go in the direction of somewhere where you don't want to be. Basically, I went on this no meat challenge, right? I started off as like a meatless Monday. And then I started following something that was like meatless Monday. And then it gave me all of these reasons why you shouldn't eat meat. And so I've gone on this journey before. I've been vegan before. I've been vegetarian. I've been pescatarian, all these things. Well, there was nothing really wrong with anything going on in my body, but I just decided to do this meatless Monday. Then the meatless Monday turned into a whole week of just eating no meat. And so what happens is I ate a whole bunch of carbs, because there's a lot of carbs in a lot of foods that don't have meat. So I started eating like more French fries, and I started eating a lot of beans, and I started eating a lot of vegetables, and I thought it was a good thing, but these were vegetables that made you bloated. I literally gained 9 pounds, and not just 9 pounds like spread out in a very short amount of time. I mean, specifically in my gut. Like my gut was so messed up. I was unrecognizable. My clothes were fitting tight. I just felt literally bloated, and I was bloated, not just because I was in my luteal phase, but because I had gone on this no meat challenge, and I started craving a lot of carbs that made me feel inflamed. And I don't know if you know this, but when you have inflammation in your body, your PMDD symptoms are so much worse because of that inflammation. My symptoms were horrible. And it really started to not just impact my body, it started to impact my mind. I was like, I don't even look like myself anymore. My mood started to shift. I was so tired, so fatigued. What I was putting in my body was impacting every aspect of my life. I didn't have energy to do half the stuff that I knew that I had to do. I already had fatigue because of PMDD. And then I felt even worse because I didn't have energy because I was eating all this crap. I ended up going to the grocery store, buying like all these different bags of chips, because what happens is when you eat a lot of carbs, specifically in your luteal phase, and you kind of give into those cravings, they're empty calories. So they don't fill you up. Like there's this phrase about these Lay's potato chips that happens in the US, and they're like, bet you can't eat just one. And then it's like bag. I literally went through bags and bags and bags of potato chips, specifically cheddar and sour cream potato chips. And I was eating it with salsa. I was eating it with but again, I was all like, well, at least I'm not eating meat. I was eating all of this crap, and it made me crave even more crap. And yeah, 9 pounds later, I felt like I didn't even identify with who I was. I was like, I think it was causing like an alert. I had some kind of allergic reaction. Like my body was just all out of whack. And it all started from me being in that place of being in my luteal phase, giving into this craving, going on this challenge. Because I think a lot of times when you're not happy with your mind or your body, you may go down a rabbit hole of trying things. Maybe you try supplements, maybe you try pills and all of these things just to feel like yourself again. Sometimes the things that you do when you're in your luteal phase to try to feel like yourself again actually make you feel worse off. And that's what happened to me. Like I literally woke up and I was like, I played myself. I literally played myself. I don't feel like myself. I was so exhausted. I didn't want to do certain things with even my daughter. I was like, oh, we got to do this. We got things that I would normally enjoy and be able to do even in my luteal phase. I wasn't able to do. And so it impacted my brain fog. I was so confused. Like my mood was up and down. Like, what you put in your body really does impact your mind. Like I had no idea that was going to happen. I actually started off doing it for a good reason. I thought I was doing the right thing. I ended up not getting a lot of sleep, or I was feeling sleepy all the time. I was drinking coffee. Nothing was working. And so I felt like my whole body and my mind was betraying me because of the decisions that I made during my luteal phase, which this is why you have to be so careful about what you introduce when you're trying to manage your symptoms, because it can actually make you feel worse. And it takes you a while to get back on track. Like that happened to me this past month, and I'm still trying to reduce the inflammation in my body. Like it's almost like a week and a half later, and I still am slowly feeling like myself again. Like I'm supposed to be in my good days, but I'm still paying for things that I did in my luteal phase, which is horrible because you feel like, oh my gosh, then the next thing I know, I'm going to be right back in my luteal phase again. When your biology shifts so drastically because of what's going on in your mind and your body, that your sense of self you lose it. And so the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this episode today is that you can lose your sense of identity within your PMDD relationship if you do not monitor what you are intaking. What I mean by that is you need to monitor who you're listening to. If you are listening specifically on certain platforms and they're talking about being single and breaking up and what you don't deserve, and you need to stand up for yourself, and there's all of these bandwagons that you can get on, and it starts to make you confused about who you really are and what you really deserve and who your partner really is. You'll start to feel so differently about yourself that you'll become a different version of yourself. And maybe that different version of you doesn't want to be with the partner that you have. So now you're questioning the reality of your relationship and whether you should be with this person and whether you're compatible, all because you're losing your identity in your PMDD relationship. And so what I really want you to do, if you're feeling in this place of like, yeah, I don't know who I am every single month, I feel completely different, I want to find a way to stay grounded. You have to have routines in place that keep you grounded in who you really are. This is why I do my PMDD partners morning routine every single day. I don't get to skip a day. I do it during my ovulation. I do it during my luteal phase. I do it during my follicular phase. I do it through my menstruation phase. And I do this because it reminds me of the core of who I am, and not just doing things in that morning routine, have evening routines as well. And I know it sounds like a lot of work, but the payoff is that you're consistently staying grounded in who you are, someone that you're proud of, someone that you don't have to feel ashamed of. And you get rid of that guilt, right? But what happens is when you just let PMDD take the wheel in your relationship, you're going to become a version of yourself that you don't like. And I remember what that looks like. I remember what that feels like, of being like, I don't like this version of myself. When I decided that I didn't like the version of myself that went off on PMDD rage, I went through a lot of the tools that I teach you in my program, how to stop going off on your partner every month in PMDD. I developed that program because I had to use those tools to not be that version of myself. So I really wanted you to write down and say, what are the things, what are the characteristics that you do not want to have as part of your identity in your PMDD relationship? And you start working towards that. And if that's something that you know that you need help with, go to inlovewithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions with me so I can help you rewire your brain in your luteal phase and all of the other phases of your cycle. And then also help you develop a routine, whether it's morning, whether it's afternoon, evening. Yours doesn't have to be mornings, by the way. Mine is something that I know my PMDD symptoms are worse in the morning. Like I wake up and I'm immediately feeling negative. So I need to rewire my PMDD brain immediately before I interact with someone. That's why I do mine in the morning. But you can have, an influx of PMDD symptoms in the evening, or different times in your day. And it's just a matter of going on that journey of really just understanding what is the version of you that you want to be and what is the version that you don't want to be, and stop letting PMDD steal your identity and feeling like there's nothing that you can do about it. There are things that you can do about it. Go to the link in the show notes if you need a session. Until next time, we got this. I love you. I hope these tools help you and your PMDD partner. If you have not enrolled to get the course, My Partner Has PMDD, Now What? Then you want to make sure that you are one of the first 12 individuals that gets the course for the month of December to get that complimentary private session with me. And then after that, it'll go back to regular price without the private sessions. But what this course is going to do for you is give your partner all of the tools that they need on how to be a supportive PMDD partner. What does that look like? I always say that your partner doesn't need more information. They need more implementation. They need more transformational tools. And this is the program for you. So I'm looking forward to you getting those tools in the program. And until next episode, we got this.